This is Fintech Insider News. This week, the worlds of TradFi and crypto merge once again as Kraken buys NinjaTrader. Lumber secures $15.5 million to boost workforce management with agentic AI. And Project Nemo teams up with HSBC Innovation Banking to boost disability inclusion in fintech. We'll be discussing all of this and much more on today's show, so don't go anywhere.
This episode is brought to you by the Toyota Grand Highlander. Life's journey brings constant change, filled with exciting surprises and grand challenges. And with its spaciousness, power, and style, the Toyota Grand Highlander is more than a vehicle. It's your partner in embracing all life throws at you. From the spacious adult-sized third row to seating for up to 8 passengers, the Toyota Grand Highlander is up for every grand challenge. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander. Toyota, let's go places.
It's time for basketball, and Uber Eats is dropping deals on game day favorites to keep you locked in on the action. Like when you're craving a buzzer beater, but also buffalo wings. Or when an upset makes you want to ugly cry into a pizza. And right now, Uber Eats has game day deals from Burger King, Buffalo Wild Wings, KFC, and hundreds more local favorites. So you can keep your eyes on the ball and your hands on a burger. Order now, only on Uber Eats. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
Hello and welcome to episode 949 of Fintech Insider. We are recording this episode on the opening day of the 2025 Major League Baseball season. And just like baseball, the world of fintech is all about strategy, adaptation, and the occasional home run innovation. This week, we've got a stellar starting lineup, stepping up to the plate to break down the biggest news stories shaping the industry right now. So let's play ball. First up on this week's pod, we have Joanne Dewar, Project Nemo lead at Project Nemo. Joanne, it's great to see you, great to have you back. I know you've got some exciting news, which we'll get into a bit later, but I'm sure our listeners would love a bit of a reminder just about yourself and Project Nemo.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's great to be here. I think it's the first time I've had an intro tied to baseball, but happy to be back with the team at Fintech Insider. So yeah, my background and history in the fintech space was as CEO of Global Processing Services, now Thread. So I've been a part of this industry, this space for a long time. And a couple of years ago, as I was exiting there, I realized that we really weren't talking about disability inclusion either in our organizations or the accessibility of all of our products and services. And so Project Nemo was born as a call to action to ensure that as an industry, we make sure that the future of payments works for everyone.
Amazing. I mean, look, it's such an important cause, and we're so glad that you've come back both to talk to us a little bit more about it, but also share your news. And the baseball introduction, we're nothing if not creative here on Fintech Insider, I'd say. So I'm glad that's a new one for you, because it is for me. Next up, we have a Fintech Insider debut for Oleg Pravdin, head of product at Lumber. Oleg, thank you so much for joining us. I know you've also got some exciting news, which we'll also get to shortly. But yeah, again, I'd love to hear a little bit more both about yourself and about Lumber.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Ross, for having me. Great to be here today with Fintech Insider News listeners. Appreciate it. So my name is Oleg Pravdin. I head product for Lumber. And Lumber, for those that don't know, is the construction software as a service company. We're revolutionizing field and back office operations with our AI-powered, workforce-centric platform. So I've been part of the founding team from the very beginning when we started our journey. And before Lumber, I've spent a couple of decades primarily in fintech, building products and teams. Large and small companies, spent a good amount of time at Silicon Valley Bank, Wells Fargo, and then Yodlee and a couple of other startups. And Yodlee is where I met Shrisha and Manish, our CEO and CTO. And I also ran my own company, NinjaTrader, with a couple of co-founders for a few years. So excited to be here. I'd love to tell you more about Lumber and what we're doing. We're very excited about what we just accomplished and what's next for us.
Yeah, amazing. Oleg, thank you so much for jumping on. Can't wait to get into your story, but also, it's a really interesting journey. So thank you for coming on. And last but not least, a warm welcome back to Miguel Armaza, general partner at Gilgamesh Ventures. Miguel, I know you're a regular at this stage. Always great to have you with us. How are you? How are things going at Gilgamesh?
Thank you, Ross. Delighted to be invited back. I must have done something well the last few times. I'm great. It's a very sunny day in New York City, not a single cloud in sight. which is always welcome. And things are busy at Gilgamesh Ventures. We are an early stage fintech focused fund. We come in at the pre-seed and seed stages. And this quarter, which is about to end, I can tell you it's been the busiest quarter we've had in the last 3 years, hands down, easy. And we've made 4 investments so far this quarter. So fintech is roaring, no doubt.
No, I love to hear that. That's great. I mean, there's always, so many fatalistic headlines about investment into fintech and fintech is dead and all of that. So to hear that firsthand from your own experience is great for sure. All right. Well, look, we have a panel and we certainly have some excellent stories. So let's jump straight in. Now, our top story this week comes from FinTech Futures with a headline, Kraken bolsters multi-asset strategy with $1.5 billion NinjaTrader acquisition. So US-based crypto exchange Kraken is acquiring retail futures trading platform NinjaTrader for $1.5 billion, marking the largest ever deal combining traditional finance and crypto. NinjaTrader, which was founded in 2003 as a CFTC registered futures commission merchant with 1.8 million users. The acquisition expands Kraken's multi-asset class strategy, adding futures, equities, and payments, and enabling Kraken to offer crypto futures and derivatives in the US through NinjaTrader's FCM license. Kraken co-CEO Arjun Sethi sees the deal as a step towards creating an institutional-grade platform where users can trade any asset, anytime, bridging the gap between traditional finance and crypto. Kraken has also been in the news this week as they are exploring a $1 billion debt raise ahead of a potential future IPO. Miguel, look, maybe I'll come to you first on this, just to get your reaction. I mean, the biggest ever deal combining crypto and TradFi. I mean, this is big, right?
It's certainly big. I mean, 1.5 billion is, it's not a small price tag, but what are they getting, right? They're getting the license. It's a US CFTC license. I think it's called an FCM license, which is very valuable. They're getting almost 2 billion new customers. And I can tell you that the overlap with these traders and crypto traders is probably quite high. So no coincidence that they're making this move. So there's going to be a net new inflow of customers for Kraken for sure. And I actually know the CEO, Arjun. He's a visionary guy. He has his sights on building a big platform. And from an outsider point of view, what they are doing is they're building the Bloomberg of crypto, right? This is not their first acquisition. In the past, and I might be missing a few, but they've definitely acquired more companies. They acquired CryptoWatch, which is an analytics platform. They acquired CF Benchmarks, which is an indexing platform, and now NinjaTrader, right? So they're definitely going in the direction of, a platform that can do a lot more than just trade. And guess what? This is 24/7. So it's, call it crypto meets TradFi. There's going to be no distinction at some point. And this is a deal to watch. And it's no surprise it comes on the heels of a potential IPO.
Right. So actually, Miguel, that was going to be my next question to you, because as you say, it's very clear that there are some serious ambitions here beyond, just crypto, it becoming multi-asset, everything you said about it being 24/7. I love the analogy about the Bloomberg for crypto, because I think that's absolutely the direction. But then, of course, it's interesting that already we're starting to talk about a potential future IPO. So again, I would hazard a guess that this is one that you'll be keeping a firm eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not a public markets investor. I focus all my time on early stage private, but this is kind of what you want when you back an early stage company. You want them to evolve beyond their initial product offering. So I'm actually, quite excited for what's going to happen with Kraken. They're one of those that came, almost unscathed after all the problems that surfaced with crypto the last 2 years. Obviously everyone has had some sort of issues, but Kraken has kind of stayed away from most of the controversy. So I think they're playing their cards very well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Joanne, what was your initial reactions when you saw this story? I mean, I know we go back and forth on crypto and where we're sort of at with that, but do you feel like maybe this is helping it to become a little bit more mainstream?
Well, it's definitely a step in mainstreaming it, isn't it? I mean, I've just come from Pay 360 last couple of days in London's Excel. And so on the payment side in particular, we're looking at what may be happening because, it's one thing crypto being out there, but then what can you actually spend with it? And I was having a good chat with my friend Mark Hipson at Ziglu, who's, created the capability now to spend with a Ziglu card with your cryptocurrencies. So I think whether it's, on the investment trading side of things or the payment side of things, actually making that crypto tradable and usable is definitely now something that a lot of people are working on.
Yeah, I like that point right about there's a lot of speculation, particularly around the value of crypto. And we've seen that, spike and crash, but you're right in terms of like actually what are the use cases in terms of like a TradFi context, how can you use it to interact, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's exactly right. And I think this is an interesting example of that, particularly when you start to think about crypto futures and all of that sort of stuff. Oleg, what was your reaction to this story?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm honestly still processing. I mean, crypto is mainstream, and I just remember even 5-7 years ago, even though it was mainstream, there was a lot of skepticism and the valuations, right? So it's interesting to have my mother ask questions about, do you own crypto? Do you trade crypto? So it's certainly mainstream, and this move will help drive more of an adoption and conversation. So I'm excited to watch what happens next.
I really like that. I mean, that is a good indicator, isn't it, of where we're at on any sort of emerging technology when your mum starts asking you about it,
yeah,
and starts getting curious. Miguel, where do you where do you think we're at? I mean, we've seen sort of obviously crypto get a lot of mainstream press coverage with the US election. Obviously, Trump was very bullish, very outspoken. He's talked about this potential crypto reserve that I think has got some mixed reviews, both in the press, but also sort of experts in the space. I think it's always tempting when we look at these types of moves to kind of read it as, oh, that's it, crypto's mainstream, but I think time and again we've seen that the reality is probably that bit more progressive, slower, but I think it's hard to argue that at least we're starting to move maybe beyond the speculation and the hype.
Yeah, so we are not there yet, in my opinion, but we're close in the US. We're close to getting a lot of regulatory clarity, as simple as that. Right. And that is going to drive a lot of interest, both from investors, especially retail, beyond just the crypto degens, right? And also from institutional investors, from large institutions. So I think that is one of the biggest hurdles. I mean, we still have yet to see what the letter of the law is going to look like. But we can anticipate that at least there's going to be clarity. And this has happened in other countries, right? I mean, you don't have to go very far, but countries like Brazil, even the UK, Singapore, I could go on and on. At least there is clarity, right? And this is not a political statement by any means. It's just for an industry to flourish, you need regulatory clarity. And we might be getting some of that definitely for the next 4 years. Everyone's expecting to have a bull crypto market. Who knows? And it goes just beyond the degens. Now there is a large crop of crypto companies all over the world whose customers have no idea that they're actually using crypto, especially when you look at international payments on stablecoin rails, right? So it's hard to argue against an impending bull run for crypto applications, but we'll have to see.
I still struggle to be on a bull run on the crypto valuations. I still can't actually make myself think that, right, if I invest, then I'll just get it at the wrong point, and because there's nothing really behind it, I just happen to be the one that gets unlucky. But I think, even if you don't say it's mainstream, we've certainly got critical mass in adoption. There's enough sort of value invested that people want to be able to access and do something with it, which is why from a product and company perspective, there's a proliferation of companies solving for that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Critical mass, I think, is the right term. I think as well, Miguel, your example around stable coins is absolutely right. I think when you look at one of the biggest players in the processing space, like Stripe, regularly using stable coins, and you think the scale that drives. And then also the point about regulation. I mean, of course, that's going to be a major factor. And we've seen, again, I know you don't want to make this a political point, but we've seen Trump get rid of the head of the SEC, bring in somebody who's maybe sort of more friendly towards crypto and all of that, which I think, again, led some of the spikes that we've seen in the valuation more recently. People felt that might lead to more favorable regulation. I mean, Oleg, I guess it kind of goes without saying that getting the right regulatory standards and protections in place is going to be key to crypto sort of continuing this journey towards the mainstream.
Yeah, absolutely. And Miguel covered it beautifully. I mean, on that point, right, when you don't have regulatory certainty, right, it makes a lot of the large players nervous, right? And so how do they hedge their bets? I will say, I think it's definitely moving towards mainstream. And so I've had my MBA for a long, long time, right? So I'm always thinking like, Joanne, what are the fundamentals? Is it going to crash? But I'll tell you, my teenager just said that you're old school. She's got some crypto, and she's like, I can just park it and not look at it because I'm busy anyway. I talked about my mother. So I think I am actually later on the bandwagon than a lot of my, frankly, family members, and we're not talking about bleeding edge. So I think it's real, and I've talked to friends and colleagues, and even if you don't believe in fundamentals, you don't understand the fundamentals, you're going to park a couple of bucks and see what happens. And over a long term, I think even with sort of ups and downs, whether you believe Miguel's point about, it's going to be a bull market or not, I think if you just hang on to it, you'll come out okay, right? So just the long-term financial theory, as it sort of stands behind other asset types, it'll probably be relevant for crypto as well.
Yeah, and if I can just add, when I say a bull market, I'm talking more about the proliferation of ideas and creation, not necessarily on the pricing. I think that's case by case. And not all crypto is made equal. There's still a very dark corner of crypto, of the shit coins that, just have no sense, no rhyme or reason. And I just had Howard Lindsden on my podcast from Stock Tweets a couple of months ago. And he was talking about something that's very true in that corner of crypto, which is you will get rug pulled. The key is to avoid being rug pulled if you're going to play that game, right? So you just got to know where to look and be very careful.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly think we could do an entire show just talking about this point, right? But I think, look, do your research. Don't invest any more than you can afford to lose. All of those disclaimers. But I think, look, a really, really big headline story, I think, to kick us off, and one that will definitely, Miguel, like you, be keeping a close eye on. I am going to move us on to our next story. So Lumber raises $15.5 million to enhance workforce management platform with agentic AI. Now, this one also comes from Fintech Futures. So Lumber, a US-based workforce management platform for construction firms, has raised $15.5 million in Series A funding to expand its fintech suite with AI-powered tools. Founded in 2023 by CEO Shrisha Ramdas and former Yodlee employees, Lumber started with a gamified time tracking app and now offers payroll, payment cards, and HR tools to more than 100 US businesses. Now, funding will fuel AI-driven features like document digitization and payroll automation, plus early wage access and workers' comp insurance. Lumber plans to launch 15 AI agents by year's end. The company also aims to triple its headcount, focusing on marketing and engineering hires while working to boost financial literacy for construction workers. Now, Oleg, I know we talked about Kraken's ambitions in the previous story, but you guys certainly aren't hanging about. Lots of really, really cool features and addressing some important problems. I mean, look, I'd love to hear a little bit more about it. I'm so glad that you've come on to talk to us about it. But yeah, it'd be great to get your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely, Ross. I'm just pumped. And this is the first milestone, and hopefully lots of milestones. We're bullish about the space. We're bullish about lumber. We think we are in a precipice of building a giant company that's going to be successful, and maybe even more importantly, drive a lot of value. So, you talked about lumber. Just to kind of unpack it a little bit, we're a deep SaaS solution for construction, and we focus on specific area in construction, so specialty subcontractors and general contractors that self-perform. And so the reason why it's important is we actually focus on the construction companies that have labor force in the field. They're laying asphalt, they're building, doing electrical work, drywall, mechanical, all of that work. So if you think about data centers that are going up because of AI, right? These are our customers. They're doing a lot of the work. And so they have craft men and women in the field. And it's a really difficult industry, hence there's a lot of opportunities. And so we started with, as you talked about, time tracking solution. That was our first product. Our platform is fully integrated. So unlike in construction, you've got essentially pretty disaggregated, I would say, siloed technology ecosystem. Most companies have 7 to 9 point solutions that don't talk to each other. Back office doesn't share the data with the field. And so you're talking about high revenue, but fairly low margin customers. So, there's a fascinating stat that new construction companies, 45% of them die in the first 3 years, but those that make it grow pretty rapidly. And so the number one sort of factor to it is job costing. Can you keep track of your job costs? And so because we focus on a space, we've built an integrated platform that starts with, of course, field productivity, time tracking, resource planning, scheduling, and dispatch. But our goal was always to be a payroll company. So what does that mean? We want to capture in real time data coming from the field and really drive payroll. Payroll is a bane of most construction companies' existence. Why? Because this industry is even higher regulated than healthcare, if you can believe it, right? There's certainly high risk industry, incidents, safety is absolutely paramount here. And so by being able to capture and integrate via AI a lot of rules from unions, from prevailing wage, if you have government-funded projects, if you're working across multiple states, and automate that experience, we are driving hours and hours out of sort of the weekly payroll cycle through a number of products. But we are always going to have sort of workforce at the heart of what we do. So most solutions in the space are really focused on the back office. And that's who our buyers are, frankly, and we love them, we appreciate it. But how do you make the experience really simple in the field? Somebody that's laying asphalt, they don't want to mess around with the application. It has to be really simple, right? It has to be voice enabled. AI can drive a lot of value. So simplicity while driving insight, predictive analytics, and accurate real-time pay calculation is something we're about. So we've got solutions around, of course, financial services and fintech, as you mentioned. Our jewel in our portfolio is payroll, and we've got other products, payroll cards. So if you're a construction craft person that's underbanked maybe, or you still want to get a manual check or 5 in each pay cycle via lumber, all of that's possible. If you want to, split your payments. And then we've got other products, as we talked about, early access to wages, payroll card, expense management, all integrated. So you're not talking about dozens of products you have to manage, single integrated platform. And then in addition, what I'll say is some of our core competency, you talked a little about Yodlee. Our team came out of a company that was Plaid before Plaid. So we built connectivity to 40,000 financial data sources quite a few months ago. And so we understand what it is to normalize and cleanse data, and there's a lot of AI built into the platform. So being able to integrate with over 20 ERP applications means we're a connective tissue between your technology ecosystem for any construction company. So the field and the back office have the same information, can make real-time decisions that may mean a difference between winning a bid on the job, being profitable, and not being profitable. Happy to go into more details, but we really appreciate our seed stage investors who believed in us. We have a really seasoned, fantastic team, and we are bullish about our company and our prospects and making a dent in this industry.
I mean, it's amazing. I can see why, based on what you've said, and it's so often that connective tissue, as you say, where the magic happens, especially as you described it, with all of those very disparate, very siloed, disjointed systems, being able to bring those together and actually giving the businesses that you said a real shot at making it through those first 3 years. Miguel, I mean, as I say, we talked a lot about progress and ambitions in the previous story, but what the guys are doing here again kind of points to that, right?
Yeah. Well, fun fact, Oleg, Foundation Capital is also an investor in us. So we share that investor.
Fantastic.
Shout out to our friends at Foundation.
Absolutely.
So it's clear, it's become very clear in the last 2 years that every single vertical, particularly software companies, are going to be disrupted by AI, right? And what we are seeing is that the gap between the legacy companies and the upstarts is becoming wider than ever. We see this every day. We see it in our portfolio, and we see it outside of our portfolio. Companies are much more efficient. Just to give you an example, I was talking to a good friend who runs AI for a traditional $100 billion market cap company. He has a huge team. I mean, dozens of geniuses, right, helping him. Yet, 95% of the projects they have launched within the company to transform itself through AI have failed. 95% have failed. The 5% that have worked are amazing, but the 95% that failed, it's a shame, and it's for a number of reasons. Data tagging issues, systems are not talking to each other, internal political will at the company. There's a company that operates in many, many countries. And so in some cases, legacy companies are going to be able to inject AI into their systems and modernize themselves. But in other cases, maybe most cases, we're going to see companies like Lumber displace the incumbents, right? And so soon AI is just going to be software. The way we talk about software, we talked about software 3 years ago. That's how we're going to be talking about AI. And Lumber is just, a clear example of this.
Totally agree. So many companies are, they've got AI projects, but actually they're just shuffling the deck chairs where they need to be doing some major transformation. And when you think about it, if you are an AI skilled engineer, are you going to want to work in that company, or are you going to want to work in a company like Lumber with, your growth journey to go from being established in 23 to this Series A, 15 million in, we're still in the first half of 25. I mean, that's an incredible journey you've been on.
Thank you, Joanne. I mean, we have our customers, are amazing. I mean, the space, frankly, is ripe for disruption. And we have an incredible team. And I'd say the leadership, our CEO, our competitive advantage is velocity, experience of this team. And to also Miguel's point, the legacy platforms, right? It's very hard for them to pivot and move fast. And I'll say, about AI, it's sort of interesting. AI, it's a bet we made from the very beginning. And it's not that, everybody's betting on AI, but how do you actually truly embrace it? So of course, we have a dedicated AI team. These folks are incredible. They're just amazing. But yeah, the proof is in the pudding, of course, to also, the point that Joanne and Miguel have made. But I think we embrace AI in a lot of ways. Every employee at Lumber is an AI worker. So we use AI, whether it's off-the-shelf tools, market research, cleaning emails, create a table. So when, and that's coming, across the board. So essentially when everybody's using AI tools, and it seems like, it's common sense, but honestly, that drives everybody to think in that way and drives everybody to think about what can I do more efficiently? So it's really important, especially in an industry that's honestly change management. We're targeting construction. Change management is a huge pain point, right? We're talking about number one software in construction is Excel. So going from Excel to having independent agents, right? And a lot of still paper processes. So a lot we can do. I'll also say, I think another pretty interesting approach is you can build, you have agentic platform, right? And it's covering a lot of use cases, and there's homogeneous AI solutions. But I think being a SaaS play for us allows us to really focus. So there's a couple of interesting AI use cases we've solved. And when I say solve, it's a journey, right? It's never solved, right? We're continuing to enhance. But things like, imagine you have hundreds and hundreds of really skilled workers that are doing hard labor in the field, right? And it's still paper-based. And a union may prohibit you to force your labor force to use a digital solution, a mobile app, kiosk to be able to clock in and clock out, how you capture data. So in Lumber Agent simply takes that paper time card, converts it to a digital record, cleanse, flags errors, flags compliance issues, there are meal penalties in my home state of California, right? There may be, overtime is not flagged, double overtime. This is a prevailing wage project. So this kind of independent, I would say, narrow scope agent can drive a lot of value as opposed to, large implementations looking to solve a lot of use cases. So these AI agents that we deploy that focus on specific use case can be nimble and drive a lot of value. So that's been the focus for Lumber. Find those really painful use cases. Paper to digital compliance is a huge area that we're investing in, and that's been it's driven a lot of value to our customers. And I will say we're still nascent. There's a lot we're going to deliver over the next 9 months.
And I think it's really smart to have gone narrowly into a vertical, because you can really get the word out there. You've created the workflows that are sort of work for that industry, and you can dominate it very quickly.
I think the other thing that really jumps out or jumped out at me when I read that story is it's nice to see all right, you've got all of this AI. I mean, everything that you said about it being like in the company's DNA, right? Embedded, top to bottom across the company, not just a siloed project in a large organization that sits over there somewhere and hopefully it'll come good. But it's also, everything that you said about tripling the workforce and all of that sort of stuff. So often when we see headlines, it's like, oh, large organization deploys AI, cut 700 people from the organization. It's that cost-saving thing. It's like, how can we use AI to cut cost out of the business? And so it's really, really nice to see a story that is sort of going against the grain. I am going to have to leave us there, unfortunately, because again, I think we could talk about this for the entire show, but I do need to wrap us up. So on that note, I am just going to take us to a very quick pause here. We'll be back with you very shortly.
Cybersecurity is the top concern for UK businesses, according to Vanta's recent State of Trust report. But whether you're a startup founder or an experienced security professional, Vanta is here to help. Businesses use Vanta to establish trust by automating compliance needs across over 35 frameworks like ISO 27001 and SOC 2, centralize security workflows, complete security questionnaires up to 5 times faster, and proactively manage vendor risk. Join over 9,000 global companies like Flow Health, Synthesia, and Alica Bank, who use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. For a limited time, get $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/insider. That's VANTA.com/insider for $1,000 off.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
All right, welcome back. Now, before we get back into the news, I wanted to tell you about our latest Insight show. Imagine you were about to start an innovative payments ecosystem from scratch. Where would you begin? Regulation, technology? Well, we recently went down to JP Morgan's e-commerce forum and assembled a panel of payments experts to figure out just that. The podcast is out now. Just head to the episode below this one to tune in. All right, now back to the news. Our next story comes from Finovate. with a headline, Chime introduces $500 instant loans. So Chime has launched instant loans, a micro-lending product offering up to $500 instantly with a fixed interest rate of 29.76% without credit checks. When members repay these loans on time, it can help boost their credit scores by 10 to 30 points, as Chime reports on-time payments to credit bureaus. Quote, "We are relentlessly focused on helping everyday people achieve financial progress," said Chime Chief Product Officer Madhu Muthukumar. Quote, "Our members have told us that they want simple and transparent tools to access money when they need it and to help them build credit. And we're excited Instant Loans provides both to our members." Chime's new Instant Loans product sits in Chime's portfolio of other microloans, including MyPay, which allows members to access up to $500 of their check before payday with no interest, and SpotMe, which allows members to access their overdraft without fees. I think this is a really, really cool story. Oleg, I'll come to you first on this one. What was your initial reaction?
It's brilliant. It's simple. It's easy. There's, frankly, no cognitive load. You need funds quickly, no credit check, you get it. On the surface, it's not inexpensive, right? We're talking about 30% APR. So, I spend a good amount of time in the payday lending industry and digitizing it as part of the lend-up team. So, definitely with this, maybe not to get political, with this administration, maybe it's less of a regulatory risk, an oversight. But, just a few years ago, it'd be different with CFPB. I think there's a lot of consumer value. I love the no credit check. I like the idea that it can improve your credit score. So I'll say it's helpful. Having been around the block a little bit, my head goes into a few places. One, ease of use. Chime's got a great customer experience. They have a good customer base. They know what they're doing, right? On the other hand, if somebody gets used to this product, they'll tap into it time and time again, right? So it does drive fee income for Chime. It certainly is not an inexpensive product. And I've seen in the past where products like this, sometimes it really pays off, meaning that somebody's credit score goes up and they can have access, obviously, to lower cost solutions from a lending perspective. That's amazing. Sometimes it goes the other way, right? So if you're late on repayment, you get reported to credit agencies. So something that was supposed to actually drive your credit score up ends up, hurting you, right? So depending on how the guardrails are, how the experience is set up, right? So like the product, understand the value, instantly no credit score. But I do, again, having seen sometimes you have the best intention and the product works out, but sometimes it may not work broadly for 100% of your population just because it's essentially a latter step up. But sometimes, there's a hiccup or two. So I wonder if the team is thinking, I'm sure they are, but thinking about that, can they support their member base, right? In case somebody does have a hiccup to prevent actually driving down the credit score. Because in the US, it's absolutely paramount. Your access to lending products is absolutely based on your credit score. And how expensive access to funds is also based on the credit score. So yeah, it makes sense, but there is a little bit, some bells ringing in my mind.
I think that's absolutely spot on. I think it's easy to see the upside of this type of product from a consumer perspective, but it's really important not to lose sight of the potential risks. What was your initial reaction, Miguel?
Cash flow underwriting, right? They're making full use of it. Actually, my co-founder at Gilgamesh Ventures, Andrew Endicott, he co-founded Pedal, who was one of the pioneers in the US, maybe the pioneer for cash flow underwriting. It's good that mainstream fintechs and honestly, beyond just fintechs, you see them adopting it. It makes complete sense, right? But also, this tells me that a big percentage of Chime's users are using it as their primary bank account, which gives the company the confidence that they can underwrite them only with their Chime data.
Either that, or it's an incentive to make more people use it as their primary bank account and move across. Because what we've seen certainly over this side of the Atlantic is with the vast majority of the challenger bank accounts still they're not necessarily the one that the salary is going into. But if you've got that kind of incentive on the other end, then it might be a reason to encourage that adoption.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, I mean, Oleg, you mentioned payday lenders. I mean, I'm hoping this continues to kill the traditional payday lending industry. And it makes sense why they're charging those rates. Like payday lenders, they don't know you when you walk in, right? They just see you behind the counter, behind the glass. But in this case, they have, in many cases, years of data from you. And also just another step from Chime in just recognizing that through credit is how you build a massive company. I mean, this is nothing new to everyone here and to the audience, but if Chime wants to go public, they need to increase that lending portfolio.
It's absolutely key. Joanne, another lens that I think is interesting in this context, and obviously it's hard to discuss anything these days without talking about the cost of living crisis. What do you think about a product like this in that context? I mean, obviously there's upsides in being able to access cash when you need it and your finances are being particularly squeezed, but I suppose there's also potential risks and downsides, right?
Well, I was going to say everything that Oleg and Miguel have said to date translates directly across to the UK experience in terms of, the need for this product, the landscape, the risk factors in terms of, potential unintended consequences. And I don't have the stats to hand, but, there is a massive need for safe, relatively small sum unsecured lending in the UK. And certainly, one equivalent in the UK would be, Salad Money, who are massively sort of oversubscribed for what they're able to provide. Again, what you say about the interest rate, again, same applies over here in terms of that's not, unreasonable as an interest rate when you haven't got the security or the credit checks. In terms of the cost of living crisis, I think the start point has to be that we are trying to enable people to live their lives. And we cannot be judge and jury as to what money they need or what they need to spend it on. The piece where we as society can make the biggest difference, I know we're going to come on to speak about this a bit later, is improving financial literacy. So where people, is where we can encourage people to know as much as they can about saving and spending and interest rates and, long-term consequences. Yeah, I think that's the thing that we need to make sure that we do. The other point that I was going to say absolutely translates is the credit building importance, and it's you have to lend in order to build that score. We work with James Lynn at Currency and Build My Credit Score, which is sort of a pretty unique proposition in actually leveraging a different facility. It's an open banking based facility that enables a building their credit score. But in the main, you need to start that journey to build the score in the first place.
Well, you have teed me up so nicely, so I'm going to move us into our next story. Again, from Fintech Finance with the headline, Project Nemo partners with HSBC Innovation Banking to accelerate disability inclusion within Fintech. Project Nemo, the initiative accelerating disability inclusion within Fintech, announces that it is teaming up with HSBC Innovation Banking UK to turbocharge its mission. HSBC Innovation Banking is collaborating with Project Nemo to help UK fintechs explore and understand the opportunities and benefits of building more inclusive and accessible products and services. The partnership is kicking off with a unique in-person event, which will bring together perspectives from key disability advocates, end users, and accessibility experts to provide the inspiration, rationale, and practical steps fintechs need to drive forward financial inclusion for disabled customers and end users. Later on, this will evolve into exciting new digital training programs and further assessment clinics for technical teams. So, Joe, look, I've been looking forward to talking about this story because I think it's just so important. I'd love, obviously, just to hear more about the partnership and I suppose where you think it can go.
Yeah, this is something that's been almost a year in the making, and so I'm tickled pink to be able to talk about it today. Project Nemo has been looking to raise awareness to say, actually, whilst we're busy building our new primarily digital products and services, often in the name of financial inclusion, are we actually being mindful of who our customers are and what their needs are? Do we even understand about visual impairment, hearing loss, whether it's, speech impediment, whether it's cognitive difficulties, whether it's dementia? There's a broad range of disabilities, all sorts of implications in a digital environment that we've just not been speaking about. So Project Nemo was born in order to be able to raise awareness and start to address this. But we, as a sort of a tiny pro bono team, could never really scale out to every organization in our industry. So what we've been doing primarily, we had fantastic support in our initial workshops we launched last April. And then we pivoted to storytelling via microfilm series and podcast series, because that would increase our reach. Because a lot of people were saying, well, really interesting what we learned. Can you now come and do that in our organization? Can you come and sort of repeat what you've done? And, we didn't have the model to be able to do that. Whereas a film that tells a specific story, I call it like the John Lewis ad model, because it, tells you a very human interest, emotional heartstring story of an individual, a disability, a pain point in financial services, and a call to action with the relevant voice of authority. So R&IB for a visual impairment story, for example, that's really sort of cut through. But then it's okay, so you've won the hearts and minds and the interest to do something, but what do we need to do? Along comes HSBC. So HSBC Innovation Banking team. So that's the UK European part of the old Silicon Valley Bank, which was bought by HSBC when the crisis happened a couple of years back. And I've had a long-standing relationship with the team there. And they said, well, we really want to lean in and help. And we started exploring what that may be. And they have 400 fintech customers. So, they're very much they play a parental role across the fintech ecosystem. Now, where they started exploring this with the HSBC parent company, they actually happen to be, very pro and advanced in their own accessibility journey. Marley Fernandez, who's the global accessibility lead, is a real, thought leader across the industry. He's got a very strong team, and he's been absolutely championed and supported by Ian Stewart, the UK CEO. And so he said, right, can we use our resources to help? We've got expertise, we've got training materials. Can we see about doing something programmatically together? So, this is like the ultimate in fintech big bank collaboration for the benefit of both the industry and wider society. It's super exciting. And so what we're going to do, we've got a launch event, a kickoff event, 23rd of April. Registrations are available now, and I guess we'll figure out a way of providing the link on when we publish this. And that launch event is aimed. It's in London and aimed at fintech execs who would like to lean in and learn. And that's really primarily looking at the business case and the call for action. But even at that event, we've got some accessibility consultants from Marley's team who are going to provide sort of real-time surgeries and pointers, looking at people's products, websites, and giving pointers. And that's what we want to lead to then with the later training provision as we enroll, product technology teams, maybe marketing teams as well. We'll see, where the interest lies on a rolling program to provide that support. And that support is then going to be available from online, in person, and the continuation of these surgeries. So, that is an incredible gift to the entire industry. And so, and particularly, this is all at no charge as well. So there can be no excuse of, but we haven't got the budget, or it's not a priority, or whatever. We can do this. And the why, the big opportunity on the back of this is not only is, 23% of the population has some form of disability. So there's a target customer opportunity. A Purple Pounds valued at £274 billion for the UK, or 1.8 trillion for globally. So, there is definitely a commercial opportunity there. But beyond the B2C opportunity, a lot of the fintechs that certainly I'm connected with is very much the B2B environment. And that's what, all of us have been talking about. But it's just as important in B2B. Do not assume for a moment that your B2B customer doesn't have a disability. So let's make sure that we've got, our websites, our API specs, whatever it is, in accessible formats. One of the stories that we're just editing at the moment is of an individual called Josh Nonnet Black, who's blind. He studied astrophysics at university. He's a data scientist with Deloitte. And because of his upbringing, the way he's learned, his synapses are joined differently, and he can see data and patterns in ways that, many other people can't. He's an absolute asset as an employee, but you can only work in an organization that is thought about the accessibility, and can only work in an industry that's making its, whether it's webinars, its conferences, its LinkedIn posts accessible. And so many of the things that you need to do for accessibility are really very, very straightforward. Things like when you're putting a LinkedIn post together, when you put hashtag, capitalize the first letter of each word, and that makes it screen reader readable. No one intends to exclude, and it's just the little pointers that can make all the difference.
I just love that example, because it just shows you that if you're looking for this, if you're conscious about this, and if you're setting people up in the right way, there's real upside for the business as well in being more inclusive, bringing those types of people into the business. And look, Oleg, I imagine as a product manager yourself, so much of what Joanne has just so eloquently laid out resonated with you.
Yeah, I love the project. I love the story. Joanne, is an incredible ombudsman for the opportunity. There's so much I can say. This speaks to me. Financial literacy is something I'm passionate about. And so I'll park that for a second. But, honestly, Joanne, is sort of shocking. We're talking about this in 2025, right? I remember, frankly, I'm dating myself. 20 years ago, we focused on accessibility. And why isn't this the standard? Why isn't this a norm? Just to be able to essentially make content and software available to everybody. 20 years later, we're still having this discussion that it's not enabled. You just gave a very nice point there in terms of capitalizing each letter. So it's sort of, that tells me that the industry just hasn't focused on it. We've talked a good game, so to speak, but we haven't made this a reality. So I think it's a fantastic reminder, right? Not to exclude. And it's also good for the business. And it's also good for, folks that are, fully able or not, right? It's actually good for the entire society. So a lot of what you've talked about absolutely resonates with me. And yeah, on a financial literacy and accessibility, it's just amazing that this program, at no cost and can drive so much value. So I'm pumped to hear it. And I think there's more we can do, frankly, even at Lumber with our, growing startup, but the whole industry, like financial services, I'm surprised fintech isn't leading in this area, right? Just because it makes business sense, to Ross's point, it's good for the society. It's a win-win-win, which is very rare.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Win-win-win is an amazing combination.
This reminds me of trust me, this is connected. This reminds me of a story. Last year, I was traveling to DC, actually to record a podcast with Nigel Morris from QED Capital One. And there were no hotels, nothing available except for one, which is called the Kellogg Conference Hotel at Gallaudet University. I was like, I wonder why this is the only one available and it's affordable. I go, and turns out Gallaudet University serves institution for education of the deaf and hard of hearing. But I only found that out as I arrived. And especially in the morning, the breakfast, it's a very, emotional experience, can bring you to tears, because the whole hotel is set up in a way that is very friendly for people that are, hard of hearing and deaf. And so you think about, wow, why aren't other businesses as equipped to serve this population? So this is obviously something very, very nice that you guys are doing, but also I like that it makes complete business sense.
And to add to your point in terms of it helps everybody. Again, we were at Pay360 conference in London last couple of days, and I've been lobbying everyone on this. And Pay360, for the first time, we had live captioning on every stage. And, because of the advances of technology and AI, these things are good and, cost efficient to put in place. And it's not just benefiting those who cannot hear readily. You think of the number of participants who don't have English as a first language, and it's easier to read than see. And most Netflix now is consumed with subtitles switched on. And all these kind of things just make you think, actually, accessibility is good for everyone.
Yeah. Look, I think it's such a great story. I think it's been a theme of the stories we've had actually on this show that we could have probably talked about all of them for the entire show. But I just want to say, Joanne, I think it's amazing. I think it's so worthwhile, so meaningful. And it's great to see it sort of happening at scale through a partner like HSBC Innovation Banking as well. So congratulations on all that you've achieved.
Thank you.
All right. So now for a quick look at one more news story this week that we didn't have time to cover in full. It's another great story. Comes from The Verge with the headline, Robinhood is launching bank accounts that will deliver physical cash to your doorstep. So Robinhood is expanding into banking with Robinhood Banking, a new online platform launching this fall for Robinhood Gold subscribers. It will offer checking and savings accounts plus unique features like on-demand cash delivery. The service promises a 4% annual percentage yield, an FDIC insurance up to $2.5 million, which I think is like 10x the standard, through Coastal Community Bank, since Robinhood itself isn't an FDIC insured bank. At launch, users can open individual, joint, and even children's accounts. Robinhood says this platform is designed to solve challenges presented by traditional banks. Robinhood is also launching Robinhood Strategies, a new wealth management service offering actively managed stocks and ETFs. Gold members get a 0.25% management fee capped at $250 per year. And then later this year, an AI-powered tool called Cortex will roll out for Gold subscribers, providing real-time market insights and stock recommendations. I actually think it's quite easy to underestimate how big this is. If I was Charles Schwab or Morgan Stanley or anyone else, I'd be a little bit concerned about what this could become. I think, we often talk about this idea of a private banker, wealth manager in your pocket. But what does that look like in practice? I think this is one of the first meaningful steps we're going to see in that direction. The AI-powered tool being able to give you intelligent, contextual insights instantly versus waiting to get in touch with your private banker or wealth manager, whatever that looks like. I think it's really, really interesting. Obviously, we'll see what happens when it launches this fall. But it's definitely one that I am intrigued to see.
I can't get over the mental image of particularly being Robin Hood, of delivering purses of gold coins to people.
Yeah, you're right. That's powerful. It is. I didn't think of that. That's really powerful. I like that.
It also shows that at scale, most consumer fintechs end up competing against each other, right? So Robinhood is starting to compete with the new banks and obviously traditional banks as well.
So right.
You definitely want to become the super app.
That's so right. That's so right. We're moving beyond the initial wedge now, aren't we? And everyone's sort of getting into the same territory. Okay, all right. And moving us on to our and finally story this week. This one comes from Insider Sport with the headline, Paralympic gold medalist turns fintech CIO at Infuse. Fintech issuer processing company Infuse has appointed Birgit Skarstein, the power rowing gold medalist, as its first ever chief inspiration officer. Infuse wants to integrate her, quote, proven championship DNA into Infuse to motivate, inspire, and challenge its teams through her personal stories of becoming a Paralympic athlete and overcoming adversity through her disability. Both a power rower and power cross-country skier, Skarstein won Paralympic gold at the 2020 Tokyo Games in the PR1 single sculls. She followed this with a silver medal last summer at the 2024 Paris Games and has won 6 gold medals at the World Championships. The newly created Chief Inspiration Officer role is the first of its kind in the fintech sector, which Infuse views as a complement to its belief to go, quote, beyond expectation and take a different approach to B2B fintech. Joe, it feels like there's actually some links here to what we were talking about in the previous story in terms of someone with a disability being able to bring unique perspectives and experiences and that being valuable.
Yeah, I haven't dug into the details of this individual and what they are able to do. I mean, certainly there are some incredibly powerful stories. Many of those that have disabilities or have had critical illnesses, have grit, determination, and ability to think outside the box, innovative approaches, because they've had to adapt in everything they do. And that can be incredibly powerful to have by your side in a leadership team. The word inspiration is a little bit of a double-edged sword because, certainly some people with disabilities would not want to be told they're inspirational just because they're, walking around on prosthetics or something like that. So, it's inspirational for their story and what they've achieved as opposed to for having a disability, full stop. Yeah, I mean, that's the bit that's sort of just the watch point. I don't know, what this individual's in to do, whether they're, sharing their stories, whether they're, actually sort of going beyond that. And, I think one of the genuinely most inspirational former Paralympians in our space is Lord Chris Holmes, who was, I think, a 10-time Paralympic champion as a swimmer. And he is so for those that don't know him, he's in the House of Lords, an absolute leading light within the House of Lords on many critical issues, including AI. So I think that's the key thing here, to understand, what they're in to do and what they're comfortable with, because part of the language around disability is about understanding from the individual, how do they want to show up? How do they want to be seen? What stories do they want to share? And that's up to them, and everyone's individual about it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's such an important distinction to draw that, the inspiration comes from, having been an Olympian, having won a gold medal, followed that with the silver medal. I mean, I think anyone would find that inspirational, and I hope that's the focus. Miguel, what was your thoughts on this one?
I'm still not convinced. For reasons similar to what Joanne was articulating, what is this person going to do? I think in a company, you need a very defined role. It could be that this title is just another way to refer to a spokesperson, and that's completely fine. I used to work at Citigroup. Citigroup would sponsor athletes for the Olympics and the Paralympics, and they were spokespersons, right? So I'm still not convinced. It's an interesting story. I mean, we're talking about them, so at least they definitely capture the attention of the public. But I would like to see more.
That's a fair point, Oleg. I mean, it's making headlines.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and it's sort of quite introspective what Joanne and Miguel just shared. There's always multiple perspectives. Human psychology, it's very complicated. I guess just thinking about the startup journey, whether it's fintech or other spaces, it's very hard. I mean, I don't have to, this panel knows it. First and foremost, startup journey is very hard. There are definitely incredible highs. There are certainly lows. There are challenges, scaling every step of the way, 0 to 1, 1 to 10, hopefully 10 to 100, and so on. So, having somebody who, is an inspirational leader, I think when times are tough, and they're tough for everybody. I mean, achievement isn't supposed to be easy. It's amazing. The question is, to Miguel's point, what does it look like out, beyond that? Are you spokesperson? Are you basically driving cultural engagement across the company? Are you, big part of the HR function just to make sure the sum is bigger than all of its parts? So, but it's it's a unique concept. At Lumber, we certainly we pick each other up, and now I'm lucky to be working for the team. And so we don't have a single person. Our CEO does an incredible job, and it's more fluid. But yeah, I'm excited to see what's next. But I get the value. I get the what these guys are trying to do. We're talking about them, and I'm excited to see what's next here. And maybe will this become a standard, or is this something that's essentially a splash, if you will, and then others will not copy. In our space, everybody copies, right? So let's see how that works.
Well, I think let's be clear. I mean, the Infuse team have had some incredible other marketing campaigns. They've done very, very well in the space. Two inspirational co-CEOs in Monica and Denise, and I'm sure they've thought this all through. I just not able to answer it without, I just know if I'm speaking based on my relationships with the disabled community, there would be a word of caution there and make sure it's positioned appropriately.
All right. Well, look, I think that's a really good note to end. So that does wrap up this week's Fintech Insider News. Thank you so much to today's guests. Let's go around the virtual room and you can tell us where people can find out a little bit more about you and your companies. Joe, let's start with you.
Yes, so we are on a website, projectnemo.co.uk. Project Nemo has a LinkedIn page, and so do I.
Amazing. Oleg, how about you?
Yeah, thanks, Ross, again, for having me participate. Appreciate it. I had a blast. You can look me up on LinkedIn, of course, Oleg Pravdin. And Lumber can be found on all the social media channels or at lumberfi.com, lumberfi.com.
And Miguel?
I'm always available on LinkedIn, Twitter, email, whatever. And also you can find me on the Fintech Leaders podcast, wherever you like to listen to your shows. And if you're building a fintech company or you're even thinking of building one, I'd love to talk to you.
Thanks, Miguel. And as for me, you can find me, Ross Gallagher on LinkedIn, 11fs.com. Thank you so much for listening to today's Fintech Insider. If you like what you heard, please make sure to follow us on your favorite podcast platform of choice. And if you really liked what you heard, why not share the podcast with a colleague or friend? As always, if you want to join the conversation, find us on social media. Just search for 11FS or Fintech Insider or email podcasts@11fs.com. Thanks again and goodbye.
Cybersecurity is the top concern for UK businesses, according to Vanta's recent State of Trust report. But whether you're a startup founder or an experienced security professional, Vanta is here to help. Businesses use Vanta to establish trust by automating compliance needs across over 35 frameworks like ISO 27001 and SOC 2, centralize security workflows, complete security questionnaires up to 5 times faster, and proactively manage vendor risk. Join over 9,000 global companies like Flow Health, Synthesia, and Alicabank who use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. For a limited time, get $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/insider. That's VANTA.com/insider for $1,000 off.